Alright, ladies and gents, we're back with another top 10. This time it's going to be a little bit different, and we're going to take a look at the top 10 rock guitar solos of all time. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Let's get into it. Hello ladies and gents, my name's Jack from Peach Guitars, and if you joined us on our top 10s before, welcome back for another one. Hopefully this is going to be something a little bit more like what you subscribed for. And incidentally, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit the button down there, ring the bell. There'll be plenty more cool content like this coming out very shortly. So thanks for joining us on yet another top 10. If you haven't seen our videos before, what we do is just pull together a few of our favorite songs. Before, what we did was kind of build the videos around specific types of guitars. So we focused in on Les Pauls, Strats and Tellys and so on, and pulled out our favorite riffs. Now, a lot of the comments in those videos really boiled down to people's own preferences and their kind of definitions of what they considered a riff to be, which was kind of the whole point of the video. We had our definition, and you all very clearly had yours as well. What cannot be kind of disputed, though, is the art of a great solo. Everybody knows what that is. That definition is very clear, and I think I speak for a lot of guitar players when I say that a lot of us really got started with guitar in order to try and learn to play a killer rock solo. That maybe doesn't encompass everybody, but I think a lot of people do fall into that category. And certainly when you come into a guitar shop for your first time to buy your first guitar, that's probably going to be one of the first things that you test out that guitar for. How it, you know, the solos that you've learned, the riffs you've learned, and all that kind of thing. So today's list, I think, ticks a lot of boxes. When you go on the internet and when you read magazines, a lot of the same titles, a lot of the same songs appear almost every time in these top solos lists. So we kind of stuck to that as a framework, but I also wanted to throw in a few curveballs, a few oddities, and some things that might make you think, oh yeah, I do remember that one. That was a great solo, hence why it's here. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Now, as is usually the case, I want to offer up at least one caveat here, which is I've decided to omit any twin guitar solos. There are, of course, many, many legendary solos that have two guitar players, or sometimes more, playing off of each other with very signature parts that kind of go hand in hand. There's only one of me here, so I'm not doing any of those, but feel free to comment down below anyway if you feel they were missing, because it's hard to argue that some of the best guitar solos of all time did have two guitar players, but this is solo guitar only. Okay, first on the list is a track that made it to #1 on our top 10 Strat riffs of all time. That was undeniable because it really is the most signature guitar lick, you could say, probably of all time. It's something that everybody knows. And I said in that video when we got to #1 that not everybody really listens past the opening of the song. They know the riff, but they don't necessarily know the killer solo that happens later in the track. To me, though, this was the first guitar riff that I ever learned to play, and I listened to that track over and over and over again. And once I got bored with the riff, listening to the rest of the track and listening to the amazing solo that Ritchie Blackmore played was really a mega part of it. It's kind of like a total flip side to the kind of angular nature that the riff has. It's got this very beautiful melodic solo that Ritchie Blackmore was known to do. So I think it's one of his best. I think it's one of the best rock guitar solos ever, hence why it's on the list. And it's also just a great example of a Strat sounding great in a rock solo context too. Now, coming in at #9 is a contribution from Mr. Eric Clapton. This was quite a tricky one because although he's a legendary guitar player with many fantastic recorded solos, a lot of them, I'm guessing at least, were completely off the cuff, especially the solos that he recorded with Cream in the late 60s. That band was all based around improvisation. So a lot of his very famous solos like Crossroads and I'm guessing a few of the other ones, Badge, White Room, all those kind of things, they were a little bit more off the cuff, so it's very hard to nail them. The one that always sticks in my mind though as being a memorable, very well crafted rock solo is this one, I Feel Free. I think it was the opening track on their first album that Cream recorded. I could be wrong about that, but it was certainly the first glimpse of the world, a glimpse of Clapton that the world got in this kind of power trio context, and this solo works really well for everything the band was doing at the time. It had the pop kind of melody to it, it also had a lot of his blues influence, and it showcases the all-time favourite woman tone. Okay, coming up next on the list is a mega solo from one mega guitar player. This is really one of the most iconic solos of, I dare say it's modern rock history, even though by this point it's almost 30 years old. The Use Your Illusion set of albums are actually my favourite kind of Guns N' Roses recorded work. I think Slash has his best tone on those albums. I think he played his best on those albums as well. My personal favourite pick from this period would be the Don't Cry solo. But this one definitely takes the cake as the most iconic. It was on music video TV stations. Remember those were when those were a thing? Stuff like MTV Kerrang! This video was plastered all over the place, so I heard this solo all the time when I was younger. It's an amazing neck pickup, soaring Les Paul tone over a really, really beautiful chord sequence as well. So it's just one of those perfect solos, really encompasses everything that makes Slash so brilliant. Okay, so the next selection is hopefully going to make up for all the complaints that we got on our Strat Riffs video for not including David Gilmour. I think it's fair to say, honestly, that while Gilmour isn't maybe best known for his riffs, which is why he didn't make the cut in that video, he is definitely very well known as an incredible, soulful, very meaningful lead guitar player, and that's exactly why this fantastic contribution from the late 70s The Wall album has made the list. I will just say that this track has not been ingrained in my musical psyche, so I don't really know the solo that well, so it goes a little bit off course, but hopefully you still get the gist of why it is such a great lead. Okay, so the next pick is one of pretty much everybody's favourite tunes, I think. Whether you're into music, whether you're into guitars or not, everybody knows this song, and that's testament to how massive this band was in the early 80s. However, when you really delve into the musicianship on this album alone, it is absolutely stellar. So this is off Toto 4, one of my favourite guitar players in the world, Mr. Steve Lukather. This is one of those effortless solos. It's actually a lot more difficult than it sounds because he's the kind of guitar player that these amazing lead lines and very hooky guitar parts just fall out of him, basically. And I don't know whether this was an improv, straight off the cuff kind of a thing, but that's just how great a musician Steve Lukather and the rest of the band were to create a masterpiece like this. Alright folks, here's another pick for all the people who complained about the absence of the great Mark Knopfler on our Strat Riffs list. This was the song that everybody wanted on that list. It's not really about the riff for me though. I think it's all about the amazing pair of solos that are in this song. I picked the second, the longer, probably the more recognisable solo from the track. Very, very difficult to play this kind of thing accurately, unless you're Joel Fisk here at Peach Guitars. But I think the key with this kind of thing is the dynamic sensibility. And I'm not going to delve into kind of the breakdown too many of these solos, but just the way that Mark Knopfler plays guitar is unlike anybody else. And really, when you kind of break it down to its elements of just a fairly clean Strat sound, you wouldn't really think too much magic can be done with that unless you put it in the hands of a guy like Mark Knopfler. This is one of the all-time great Strat solos, and in turn, it's also one of the all-time great rock solos. Now folks, this next pick was by far the hardest one to nail. The late great Eddie Van Halen had one of the most unique touches on the electric guitar in history, and it's really, I think this is kind of his shining beacon of an example of that. It's the one that everybody knows him for, despite his amazing work in Van Halen, of course. This is the track that really, I think, made him a household name as a guitar player. Loads of people try and play this, including myself, and you just can't get it. It's all about the swing that he had in his playing all the time. It's a surprisingly clean sound as well. The finesse and the kind of accuracy of his playing is really showcased here. There's not a lot of reverb, there's no effects or anything like that. It's just pure rock attitude on what is definitively the biggest pop album of all time. So it's a really fantastic, unique mashup. It gave way to a lot of other great solos that came after it throughout the 80s, but it's the original, and I think it's the best. Okay, so as we're getting towards the top of the list, you can rest assured Hendrix has made the cut. One of the greatest guitar players of all time, of course. He's another one, though, where it's quite hard to distinguish between what makes for a great riff and what makes for a great solo and what just makes for a great guitar track. I think he, probably more so than anybody else, just has these amazing guitar pieces. It's more than the song. The guitar is kind of the whole ethos of the track. So when it comes to breaking down to a particular solo, especially with this song, it's very difficult because guitar is just littered throughout and every little piece is a gem. So to break it down to one solo is quite difficult. So what I've tried to do here in one take is piece together several different elements of this song. If you haven't heard it before, just listen to the whole track because, as I say, it is full of these amazing guitar motifs. This happens to be, I think, the most kind of solid section that encompasses all of the things that makes Hendrix so great. And it's got one of the best wah sounds of all time as well. But here it is on the list as a top 10 rock solo. Now, if you've lost count by this far into the video, you'll be forgiven for thinking this is number one, because if you look at any other list on the internet and in magazines and all that stuff, like I mentioned earlier, this is typically the number one choice. But I think there's something a little bit better, which is going to come later. But this is definitely one of the most definitive rock guitar solos ever. It's one of the most definitive rock guitar songs, hence why it's usually banned in guitar shops. But I've managed to get away with playing it yet again. This solo is one of those enigmas, and it's one of those things that you kind of, once you start to delve into the world of guitars and paying a little bit more attention to guitar tones, one of the first myths that you'll stumble upon is that actually, did you know Jimmy Page used a telly on this solo instead of his trademark Les Paul? And it's one of the first things that really kind of connects you to the idea of just getting a great sound regardless of the gear. Just make whatever work. That's exactly what he did with this solo. Played a great solo on his telly, and it became one of the most iconic guitar sounds of all time, and I think incidentally sold a hell of a lot of Les Pauls off the back of it as well. Right folks, we've almost made it to the end, but before I tell you what number one is, let's first take a little bit of time for some honourable mentions. These are some incredible solos that just didn't quite make the cut for one reason or another, though I'm sure, along with many others that you may suggest, there's a good argument to have them in here. So if you feel that way about any of these that you're about to hear, or indeed any others that we've missed off the list, let us know in the comments what you would have put in the top 10 instead. But for now, these are our honourable mentions for the top rock guitar solos. So here we are, folks, the #1 pick on the top 10 rock guitar solos of all time. I'm going to let you hear it first, and then I'm going to explain why it made it this far. Here we go. Right, folks, maybe you didn't expect that, I don't know. But when we put this list together and this was included, we kind of agreed that this would be the not so obvious choice, but then when you think about it, it actually is the obvious choice. This is the one to me that's more than just guitar. I think every great solo, especially every great rock solo, should be not only memorable to play, but memorable to kind of sing to yourself. And I think if you took any random person off the street and you said, what's a guitar solo that you're familiar with? I think this is the obvious choice that a lot of people would say first of all, and you can genuinely sing it. It is that legendary. It's part of obviously one of the most amazing pieces of music ever composed, and it really is probably, apart from the vocal parts, the most iconic, the most significant, the most famous part of the song, and it all comes down to one fantastic guitar player that I think often unfairly gets overlooked quite considerably. So I'm very, very pleased and proud to have him right at the top of our top 10 list. Okay folks, thank you very much as always for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed this. If you haven't seen them before, like I said, go back and check out our other top 10 videos that have featured in the past. Those have all been about specific guitar types and the riffs that have been associated with them throughout history, so go and check those out when you're done with this. But I think this one was a little bit different, a little bit fresh. Hopefully you've enjoyed this slight twist on the theme. If you have, leave a like down below. As I said before, I want to know your thoughts about these selections in the comments as well. I'm sure you'll have your own suggestions for the top rock guitar solos, and I'd like to hear each and every one of them down in the comments below. I'd also like you to tell me what you think of our picks as well. If you like this style of video, hit subscribe, ring the bell so you're notified whenever we put out content in the future. There'll be some more of these kind of fun videos on the way in the future as well. I'd like to know any other kind of themes that you'd like to see, whether it be top 10s, other lists of any sort. Just let us know down in the comments below what you'd like to see from Peach Guitars in the future. If you'd like any further information about any of the equipment that I've used in today's video, every piece will be linked down below in the description. I just picked 5 guitars pretty much off the shelf here without giving it too much thought, and every single one of them delivered the goods in the most outstanding way possible. So if you want to find out any more info about these 5 guitars, click the links in the description below, head to our website peachguitars.com, where incidentally, you can find out much more information about any of the stock that we carry, including individual listing photos, product demo videos, full pricing information, weights, full set of pictures, loads of stuff. Head to the website. So thank you as always for watching, folks. Take good care of yourselves. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.